Katie J. Scott and Gabriel Stauring. They are a wife-husband team that works with the nonprofit iACT, where, among other things, they help set up soccer academies for refugees across the globe. The iACT website states these facts: 68.5 million people are displaced or disempowered. 87 million children under age 7 spend their entire lives in conflict zones. 590,000 Central Africans displaced as refugees due to violence. And 20 years is the average length of a stay in a refugee camp after the first 5 years. So helping to alleviate the stress, improve the quality of life of the children in these situations. Here we have the iACT Executive Director, Katie J. Scott, and the Founder and Chief of Vision and Strategy, Gabriel Stauring. Welcome to you both. I'm so happy we could chat about this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Happy to be here with you.
Thanks, Glenn.
So let me ask each of you, the sport of soccer, how much was soccer part of your lives before you took part in this project? Because that's obviously you do other things, and we'll get into that, but soccer is kind of the thrust when you go into these camps.
Yeah, so I never played organized soccer. I grew up in Mexico, though, so there's no way that soccer is not a part of your life. I was born in the U.S., but we went that way, and I grew up in Monterrey, where my mom is from,
wow, I just posted recently the Monterrey Stadium and the mountain in the background.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's like I've never seen anything like it. What
it's
beauty.
Amazing.
It's really amazing.
Cerro de la Silla. Yeah, we were there a couple of years ago. Katie J came to my hometown, and we went to the stadium where Rayados play, and it's a special place with the big iconic mountain behind it. It gives me chills even to think about it.
It really does. But I got a lot of notes back saying photoshopped and all this kind of stuff. No. And but I had enough people chime in and go, no, I go to that stadium, or I've lived there. That's real, man.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, so soccer, or football as it's called there, is just weaved into the life of every Mexican. And then whenever the Mexican team plays, life stops. So there's no streets in the cars. I mean, no cars in the streets. Yeah, everybody is glued to watching the games, and when the team scores, you just hear the whole city erupt. So yeah, soccer is just part of who I am.
Yeah. How about you, Katie J?
Well, Gabriel's definitely a bigger soccer fan than I am. Although I did play growing up. I played Olympic development program. I played club soccer. I played a year of Division I soccer at University of North Carolina in Wilmington. So while my mom didn't really know anything about soccer or football, and still doesn't really know much about soccer, she did put me into soccer at a very young age. And so it really kept me straight, I think, all through my high school years, middle school and high school years, and then into college. And it was really something central to my identity as a team member. I mean, playing on the high school team, and then you're playing on the club team, and then I played for Washington State. My senior year, we won state. Part of my club team won state, and we went to regionals here in California, where I live now. We got our butts kicked by some California teams. So soccer to me was really essential growing up.
So soccer is such a huge part of these missions, but maybe give the audience a little bit of background about iACT, which was created in 2004, I think I read, and you're one of the co-founders, Gabriel. So just what is it, and what is it that, in general, what is it that you're hoping to accomplish at these refugee camps?
Yeah, so it started back in 2004, and without the intention of ever becoming an organization doing humanitarian work. We both got involved in different cities just from a personal calling, that when we started to hear the word genocide being mentioned in relation to what was happening in Darfur, Sudan, it just caught our attention. And for me, it was just shocking that again, genocide would be happening on our watch, and it was right on the 10th anniversary of the genocide in Rwanda. So I felt guilty about not having done anything in '94. So I just said, okay, I have no excuse. I got to do something, and I thought I'd do a little activism, maybe send a donation, and then move on with my life. But I just I got hooked. I started to learn about the stories of the survivors of genocide, and every day I wanted to learn more, and that was the birth of gathering a group of people that just wanted never again to actually mean something, and eventually it evolved into what iACT is today.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the mission of our organization has changed quite a bit. I mean, at the beginning, as Gabriel mentioned, it was really about advocacy. It was about how can we advocate as Americans, but how can we create a relationship between Americans, policymakers, faith leaders, regular everyday people, so that they would take action and the genocide would end, so the violence against the people would end. And really that was the thing that we focused on the most at the beginning. And through the years and years of the community being in the refugee camps in Eastern Chad, they started asking for support for programs. And at the beginning, our model had always been, okay, how do we create that relationship? We used YouTube way back when you could post a 5-minute video and people would watch it. Now it has to be much shorter, and petitions and action items, and then personal actions like fasting and donating, and telling 3 friends, and sort of motivating people to take action through this personal relationship. And so when the community of Darfuris living in the camps in Eastern Chad started asking for support for their children, whenever you ask them, no matter how long they've been there, where is their hope, they always talk about education, and they always talk about the children, that the children are the hope for the future. And so they asked us for preschool programs and for a youth football program to help reach the kids, also to help keep the kids in the camps. They were being recruited and they were returning to Sudan very dangerously. Some were not coming back from those trips to try to find work, to try to contribute back to their families. And so we took the same model of creating personal relationships. So let's create relationships with football coaches. Let's create relationships with teachers here in the US, and curriculum developers and people who know about early learning. And through that relationship, our programs were co-created. And so as our mission was way back, it was really to put a face on the numbers of people who were being targeted for genocide. And our new mission is to create a more mindful humanitarian system. And really our vision is a world where the dignity of every single person whose conflict impacted is seen and recognized, and that dignity is at the center of the humanitarian response.
KDJ Scott and Gabriel Stauring from iACT, nonprofit, and what great work. And this is the naivete, personal. Sometimes the first thing I think of the needs are in these situations are food,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe shelter. And we don't always take the next step. And you mentioned education, and then the children, of course. So
Mm-hmm.
how have the children responded to your entrance and this introduction of physical activity? Obviously, education is important, but getting out and moving around as well.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, the initial most important needs are food, shelter, water. But we truly believe that hope and being able to see a different future is as important as those basic needs. And football just does that. From trip number 1 in 2005, I brought a soccer ball, and I brought it out in Camp Konungu, one of the first camps I visited, and it was just tense. About 25,000 people living in the middle of the desert had just experienced the most horrific violence. They still had, that look of shock that people have experienced, deep trauma still have. and I brought out that soccer ball, and we set up some rocks on this hill, and
Yeah.
started playing with some kids and some young men, and at that moment, all of that, the trauma, the label of refugee, all of that is gone. At that moment, they're just ballers. They're experiencing joy, and I knew, man, this round object has some amazing power, and we have to do something with it. So when years later the opportunity came up to create a football team and taking the compete to represent Darfur, and then the academy, to create an academy where children could just be kids, they live in a camp full of stress, where their parents are worrying about food every day, where they're, the tents have dissolved into the desert, so they have to be building from the mud of the ground. But for an hour and a half a day, they go to the academy, and they just play, and it is just invaluable. You cannot put a value on that, and in a parent seeing their kid go to this safe space where they're not just surviving, they're actually thriving. So it's just beautiful. It's joy, it's hope, and it's also tangible. The coaches are all refugees. They're getting a salary. They're teaching their kids about health and wellness and mindfulness. So it's actually also very tangible support for the community.
Health, mindfulness. I read something, Katie J, about the role of yoga in your life and the mindfulness and mindful movement that you discuss. So you both have brought that up several times. So describe that, how that fits into the daily routine for these children, and what it means to the possibilities of them someday prospering and getting out of this situation.
Yeah, I mean, my yoga journey started about 20 years ago, and I think about 5 years ago I realized that I really needed to take my practice, and all of the lessons of yoga off the mat and take it out into the work that I do. And I think part of that is the opportunity to offer spaces for people to move through the experiences that they've had. So in this case, genocide for the Darfuris, but for our friends in the Central African Republic, it's just been a cycle of violence, of warlords taking over the country, just complete instability for several decades. So if that is your outside environment, to be able to take back the choices, to take back what is choice to you as a person. You don't have choice over a genocide happening to you, about your group of people being targeted by another group that has more power. You don't have a choice over what warlords are doing, or the instability within your government, or the lack of resources that are around you. But the choices that you do have, if you have control over your own body and your own response, you can take back those choices. And in a humanitarian setting, there's so few choices that refugee and displaced community members have. That's how our system, the humanitarian system, is set up. So, having the choice to be able to regulate your emotions, having the choice to be able to be a teacher, to be an academy coach, if one of the to create a space that it feels very powerful to be able to create a space where children can come and be present and know that they're safe. So the parents know that they're safe, the children can feel the safety, and then the coaches and the teachers get to see that safe space, and they get to be part of creating and crafting it. And that's a choice that they have actual control over. So all of these elements are sort of woven into mindfulness and well-being. So practicing mindfulness, which is really just the act of being present in the moment without judgment, connecting your mind and your body, having your mind and your body be in the same space. So you're not thinking about what's happening next, you're not thinking about what happened before, but you're there in the moment, and then sharing that with somebody else, being a leader in your community. And I got to experience it by creating that space for coaches I was training, and creating that space for the teachers that we train. it is a very powerful experience to be able to foster opportunity for people to stand in their own power. And I think that's the piece that iACT, that's the reason iACT threads mindfulness throughout all of our programs. I mean, they're just to be able to connect to the body and take back your own breath and take back your choice is powerful, but then being able to help them create those spaces for other people. So it's not about the iACT team being there in the community and doing it for people. We're there, we're creating a training environment where they're experiencing that safe space, and then they're saying, oh, now I get to do that for other people. And it's part of my job. I get to be a hired coach and a hired Little Ripples teacher where well-being is actually centered. So many times in programs, humanitarian programs, it's about a transaction, it's about shelter, it's about food. And the way in which it's delivered is not necessarily seeing every individual who is there in the space. So part of what we try to offer as an opportunity for our coaches and teachers is to have the choice in the space that they create. So yes, they're providing concrete things, football, like training, you're building your skills, you're learning about the game of soccer, you're playing 4x4 match play. You know, in Little Ripples, you are learning whatever the local language is. You're learning the beginnings of the ABCs, the beginnings of numbers, how to be in a classroom like every preschool. And then you're also able to weave well-being into it. And it's mindfulness is not just sitting and connecting to the breath. It's also the movement, right? And it's the movement and the way in which you move your body as part of transitions between activities. And at the end of the day, when the teachers and coaches sort of close the doors or pack up their equipment, they get to walk away, you know, knowing that they created a safe space for a kid to just be in joy and to experience joy and to have their right to play in that space. And then they get to do it again tomorrow. So we really believe that well-being, it just has to be a central piece to every program that iACT is a part of.
Well, I can sense your passion in that area. Katie J. Scott and Gabriel Stauring, they are part of the nonprofit iACT and just returned from the Central African Republic. So you go in, set up, I'm sure you have this all mapped out. You get there, you set it all up, and you're training individuals to be good leaders, to teach others, to empower. The thing I always think about with these sort of situations is when the two of you leave after you've organized the whole thing, how do you trust in its continuancy, in its sustainability? Because I think that's always been the challenge with these sorts of situations. You know, you go in and everybody's just happy and they're loving it, they're getting this instruction, and then you're gone.
Yeah.
So who's left? I know you've talked about the refugee leaders.
That's a great question, and it's just so much a part of our model to leave. So we don't have any international staff in any of the places we work in, and we're in Chad, we're in Cameroon, Central African Republic, Armenia, Greece. We've worked in Tanzania, but as Kitty J had said, you know, in these settings, usually from the minute they wake up, somebody is telling them what to do, how to do it, every step of the way, and their agency is just completely taken away after they have lost home and everything else. So for us, it's so important to respect their own agency, their power. So we go in and provide the support, provide you know, the equipment, and if needed, the salaries, and the training. And one thing I am proud of, and I feel we're very good at, is selecting the right people. So we find these amazing coaches, men and women, amazing teachers, and we say, we trust you. And even then, just you know, 3 days ago, coaches were asking us, you know, who are we accountable to? And we say it in front of some of the other partners. We want to be clear. You and us, all of us, are accountable to the kids. So every decision has to be made thinking of that. What is best for that kid? and then everything is going to be okay. And then next, you're accountable to each other. The team of coaches are accountable to each other. If one is slacking a little bit, the others are going to, have to work more. So there's some internal pressure there. And then they have us and partners to support. So they're not accountable to us. They're not accountable to the donors. We tell our donors, we're going to let them do the work. We're going to trust them. That they should have the privilege to make mistakes, just like we make mistakes every single day, and learn from them. Why shouldn't they be able to learn? And we just have not had a problem with work not being done. On the contrary, we told our coaches, take the rest of October to kind of get a feel for what you're going to do, to know each other, to make plans for the work ahead. We were on the plane, and Air France has Wi-Fi, and I was getting pictures of them already working with kids. They had already found enough kids, had conversations with family, and had run the academy already before we even landed in France. So I think it's more us telling them, take it easy, take it slow, don't go too fast, as opposed to them not doing work.
And it was the same thing in Armenia. When we were in Armenia in July.
Yeah.
And there was a war in Artsakh, which is a bordering independent region to Armenia, in September through November 2020. And so we had worked for a long time with the Armenian community through our anti-genocide and prevention work. And when this occurred again, war occurred in Artsakh, which affected the Armenian community, we wrote to our partners and said, what can we do? Our work, how can we support? And so eventually we decided, as a team, that the academy could benefit the most kids and provide a social and emotional well-being to as many kids as possible. And so we went and we trained coaches, and it was a different experience because everybody who came to the training were coaches. They were volunteer coaches. They'd been coaches for a long time. But the way in which the academy is run is so focused on social emotional well-being alongside the equal importance to football skills. And in the end, we ended up selecting 3 coaches. And we said, hey, take the next 3, at least like 3 to 5 days off. You've just had 5 straight days of training. You've been away from your families because they all traveled to one central location in Goris, which is along the border. And then, just as Gabe was describing about the Central African Republic, within 2 days, we were getting photos of our head coach, Nelly, with kids in Goris, parent meetings, community meetings, girls playing soccer. So I think we start with trust. And I think that is sometimes the opposite of how the humanitarian,
refreshing for them.
How the
humanitarian, like, whoa.
Works. Yeah. And we start with that. And it hasn't failed us yet. And it's, I think, so much of not just humanitarian work, but international work lacks the opportunity to trust one another. And so we double down on trust. We try to stay in touch as much as possible, WhatsApp or Signal or email, whatever works for the local community, whatever works in the country, like in Central African Republic. And you check in and you provide that ongoing support. And so they feel that confidence, and then they're learning and they're experiencing, and then they're starting to trust themselves. And then they're starting to trust the kids that are showing up, and then they trust each other and this larger network. And I think when we're working with communities who are impacted by genocide or mass atrocities, ethnic cleansing, ongoing civil wars in their countries, offering the opportunity to be trusted and to feel trusted, and then to give that to a teammate or a kid that you work with in the academy or our early learning program is refreshing. And it shows us how much that belonging is part of human nature, right? Now they're part of, and we'll send pictures of the car coaches to the Armenian coaches, to the coaches who are, the Darfuri coaches in Eastern Chad, and they share it, and it becomes like this family, and you feel like, I finally found a place of belonging. And so then that trust just becomes a central part of your work, as an academy coach or as a liberal arts teacher.
While you guys are both speaking, I think it'd be important to get a sense, Gabrielle, of of what exactly it's like to live with these Central African Republic refugees. I mean, what is the makeup of things? What's there?
Yeah, there's different experiences for the community we've been working with. The longest are the Darfuris that escaped Sudan, the Darfur region of Sudan, over into Chad, and for them it was just horrific destruction of their land. Over 90% of villages in Darfur were destroyed in the first 3-4 years of the genocide. And so they all saw their homes bombed and then burnt down. They saw their mothers, sisters being raped, fathers, brothers being killed, the survivors chased into the desert. Many didn't make it out of the desert, and the ones that were the lucky ones made it over across into Chad, and have been living there for 17 years now in these refugee camps in the middle of nowhere. And almost 2 decades ago, Darfur was in the news and there were celebrities and getting attention. Now everybody has forgotten. We were up in the middle of the night this last night because Sudan just experienced a military coup. So again, these cycles just repeat themselves. So that's for them. In the Central African Republic, the whole country is conflict affected. There isn't a person that has not been affected by these cycles of violence where just the whole country implodes. Half of the population almost displaced, almost half are in need of daily food assistance. So it's the most extreme of situation, and what is sad is that that's the normal. The day before we were leaving to go to CAR, we got an email from some experts in the region that have deep understanding and knowledge of CAR, telling us, "Ooh, put a pause on your trip. There's some information that some military." Some of the warlords were going to make a move on the capital. So you might be walking into a full-on war. And we're like, oh, okay. So what do? We huddled and we started asking others in CAR, and pretty much the general feeling was, well, that's normal CAR. Pretty much every day you expect something might happen. So we decided to go, and we don't take it lightly. We care a lot about safety, and we try not to put ourselves in danger. We've been too close to bullets, but that's their reality. They wake up every morning not knowing what is going to happen. So that's why we believe that our work is so important, so that those kids can imagine a different world, a different future for themselves later on.
Part of their mission is to help set up soccer academies for refugees, really across the globe. You mentioned some of the countries you've entered. Katie J. Scott, Gabriel Stauring with iACT. Just a couple of other things. The Refugees United. So what is that? Is that in every camp you go to? You form this team? Is that what you call the group of people playing, Refugees United? Is that a team? What is that?
It's the name of our academy. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's your academy name. All right.
Academy, but it's also a statement. It's a calling, cry. It's our we should all be united with refugees who without they're on the move, not because they want to. Nobody leaves their home and everything they've known out of their own choice. So they are united in all of these different countries, in all of these different refugee camps or internally displaced. We create these spaces where refugees stand in their own power, and then they connect with others, and that's the beautiful thing. We believe that connection is also a basic need, that people that feel abandoned and alone, and when they most need that connection, and they value it as much and maybe more than the salaries or the footballs that we bring or the equipment, that they value that feeling that somebody out there cares about them, and that others are together with them. It's probably the most important part of our work.
And KDJ, the education side of things, and you brought it up earlier, you called it little ripples, and this early, there's actually, I guess, instruction that maybe you've had, or maybe you're instructing this early childhood development for refugee children specifically. So there are teaching techniques for that level of child.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's much different than what we want our kids here in the United States to have, right? So when we first started the program, when the Darfuri community said we need preschool, I thought, oh, I'm an activist. I have no idea what that means or what we need to do. And so our first action was to really put a call out to early childhood educators and curriculum developers and teacher trainers and say, come and let's have a meeting and let's have a discussion. And the first thing we said was, let's imagine the best possible early childhood education program. Not thinking of refugees or displaced people or people impacted by violence or geographically isolated. What is the best possible program? And from there, that's the framework from which Little Ripples grew. So it's play-based learning. It's integrating social and emotional development. It's offering, free play, guided play, games, the basics of health and hygiene, which were informed by an infectious disease doctor. What is it? How do we create the best space for our earliest learners in our community? And it from there, the local community then can infuse their culture into it. So you have a basic structure that is in all of our Little Ripples programs, whether it's in Greece or it's in Eastern Chad or it's in community-based preschools in Cameroon. There's that framework, and then each community offers its own songs, its own traditions, its own food, its own schedule, the times and the days, and what works best for the community and who makes the decisions and how many kids should be in the classroom and how many teachers. And so the science behind early development is really clear. So much of your brain is developed before the age of 6. I think it's 90%. And with that, you're also learning how to be social. You're learning how to communicate and be with other people. You're learning what is important in building relationships. And the most important thing is the responsive relationship with at least one adult. And so in many cases in refugee settings, that's difficult because people have lost adults, they've lost parents, they've lost their primary caretaker, or their primary caretaker is really occupied by meeting daily needs, right? Like having to stand in the water line, having to get your food distribution, having to walk hours to get firewood so that you can bring it back and then cook the food that maybe the other caretaker. And so really we offer the opportunity for teachers to let children be children, but to connect with them in a personal way and respond to them and create a personal relationship. And then that responsiveness literally builds the neurons that you need in order to be successful as you grow older. So it's not rocket science. So we're not SpaceX.
It's more important.
But it really is just that opportunity to have a space for kids to be kids, because there's nowhere else in a camp that they can just be kids. So letting them be kids and then helping them along the way in certain things and picking stuff up so your motor skills get developed, and working with other kids so your social skills get developed, and then playing, and through that putting all of the cars that are red together, right? And then you're learning sort of the cognitive development as well alongside of that through play. So
well, 90% of your brain's developed by the time you're 6. I was hoping for more than 10% the rest of the way for me, but I guess I'll just have to accept that.
I think it's all downhill for us from here. Yeah.
So, Gabrielle, you said you lived in Mexico for 10 years, and I recognize that you're taking iACT to areas of conflict, genocide, Well, we know about the Mexican border. We know there's families that can't get into the States or haven't been able to get into the States, and they're set up in these really difficult situations in these camps. Or maybe they've made it into the States and there are refugees in camps there as well. Will this eventually progress to that, or is it just too much because you're in these, maybe you're spread thin?
It's not too much. We are currently looking at the Mexico-U.S. border and doing the research and seeing what opportunities are there. It's very connected to my heart and what has been happening with the instability and violence in South America that then affects the whole continent all the way up to the U.S. It's an area where our programming could have a great positive effect. So we are looking at the border. We are planning on doing an exploratory trip down to the border this year and seeing where the academy could help, where Little Ripples could help, and hopefully, those kids that left their homes with their parents or alone and are sitting at the border need those spaces where they can thrive.
Well, as we close, guys, I see that 60% of your funding comes from individual donors and the rest from grants. And it looks like you got a recent grant from the UEFA Foundation for Children, but 60% individual donors. So is that, because I wanted you to be able to give your message to those listening that might have an interest in helping in any way. So I think, is money the number one?
I don't know if number one, because some people, I mean, we are a tiny little staff here in the U.S. Right now. We are 4, but we rely on volunteers, on all our experts, football coaches and our teachers, our mindfulness experts are just amazing. So for us, I think same as our work on the other side is connection. So people connecting with us and saying, hey, this is what I got. Of course, money is needed, that's without a doubt. And we welcome donations, but we welcome even more the connection and for people to step into the space and say, hey, how can I be a part of the solution?
And I will say our programs are very cost effective. So if you did want to donate, it's only $10 a year to sponsor one child in the Refugees United Soccer Academy for an entire year. So if there are listeners out there that have children in club soccer, they know that is a much smaller amount than U.S. club soccer is, and even smaller than an AYSO fee.
Yeah, that's a small fee, but still pay to play in refugee camps. I can't believe it. But
so
no,
want to sponsor one. It's only, you want to sponsor a child. It's only $10 a year.
Well, I'm on board with that. Well, it's been great to meet you both, and I do want to thank Ben Grossman, who I know has been a contributor to iACT, part owner of Minnesota United and Angel City, the team that's going to be in the NWSL next year. Formerly worked with Crystal Palace. We met recently, and he was excited for me to connect with you too, and I'm so happy I did.
Amazing.
Katie J. Scott, Gabriel Stauring, part of the nonprofit iACT, helping set up soccer academies for refugees across the world. Well, thanks to you both. Good luck. Anytime you need a boost or you have something to share that you think I could help with, please let me know.
Very appreciated, Glenn.
Thank you so much, Glenn.